Good morning, everybody. My name is Danijel Pantić, and welcome to the first episode of our podcast, The Dawn of the Idea of Liberty, which we are doing today in English language with Miodrag Kapor. Welcome, Mio.
Hey, you're welcome.
Welcome
Thank
to
you.
studio. How do you feel today?
I'm kind of a little warm, but here is
Warm,
very
yeah.
comfortable, so hope we'll have a good
Okay.
dialogue.
So you're quite well known in Serbia and beyond by your policy analysis of the what's called the energy policy of Serbia and other states of Western Balkans and globally. And you're the author of the program, which is called, or let's call it project, NIFA, No Immunity Without Accountability. Can you tell us more about yourself and your work?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I was studying in the United States for quite a while, over a decade. Finished there economics, math, law school, and so on. And my graduate degree was on Russo-Serbian energy relations. In other words, why Serbia gave out pretty much the whole fossil fuel industry to the Russian Federation in 2008. Well beyond the market price, beyond any reasonable argument at the time, even.
Without a tender, it was
Of course,
a direct
without a
deal.
tender.
Yeah.
Right. And the consequences of that deal. And so it was obvious that that deal was detrimental for Serbian national interest, not only Serbian, but for the whole Western Balkans. Because later on...
Why do you think so? It was detrimental? That's a very strong word, yeah.
Well, why? Because we have enemy of the West controlling or monopolizing the local fossil fuel industry, not only fossil fuel industry, but through the all kinds of nexus connections, such through the church, through religion, culture, media. He pretty much captured the Serbian audience, but that wouldn't happen without the help of the local players, economic players, political players, and so on. And so there was a mutual understanding, or they had a common mutual interest of pursuing that policy, making Serbia distant as far as possible from the European Union. Russian motivation is obvious, right? We can talk a little bit more about that, but the Serbian motivation is to protect the legacy of the 1990s. What do I mean by that? I mean, if there is a transparency and the joining the European Union it includes transparency more than anything else, that would uncover lots of bad and dirty things that happened during the 90s. And so some people would be...
But yet, if I may just ask you that we try to remind ourselves, what were the events leading to this transaction? And I remember I was Secretary General of European Movement in Serbia, and we've been working with the Parliament of Serbia, and with what was called the Parliament of the State Union at the time, Serbia and Montenegro. That was actually the state, and we were drafting the first ever resolution of the accession of Serbia to the EU, which was passed in the Parliament. It was not passed with consensus vote, which was the hope, which was the best practice, which would be leading towards the lasting political consensus, like, in states which were successful in the process, like Slovakia, Slovenia, Hungary, etc. But it was passed by majority in the parliament. It has some positive effects. Against were Radical Party and Socialist Party. They voted against.
What year was that? I'm sorry.
That was September 2004.
Okay.
Yeah,
Back then.
yeah.
Okay.
And then it had some positive effects, meaning that, for example, the vice president of the government would come every 2 months to the committee, and there was a lot of consultation stuff. However, later, what happened was the Montenegrin referenda, and that was the end of the federal state and the whole idea of 90s that Serbia will continue having all Serbs within one state, controlled from Belgrade, in a kind of federal environment. And then there was a constitution which was passed 20 years ago.
Right.
So it's now 2 decades. But Serbia was forced to do it, because once Montenegro went their own way, Serbia was left by itself, and it became independent republic again.
Right.
So that was 2006, and the deal was done 1 year later.
Year and a half.
Year and a half, yeah.
Right. But before that, what happened was, I don't want to go back back in history, even though it's relevant what happened during the 90s. In 2005, Serbia under Koštunica's government gave away, without any valid and logical reasons, controlling state at Jugorosgas. In 2005, that was a natural gas intermediary in territory of Serbia. And Serbia, I believe, it still is in the only European country that has an intermediary in terms of
It's still the case.
Jugorosgas still is functioning. A very profitable company, very few employees, without any valid reason to exist.
Where is it incorporated?
Well, I think here in Belgrade, I believe, but there are not many employees, and it's very relevant actually to see who are the employees or who were the employees of that company. It'll tell you a lot. So that was the first pretty much relevant signal where the Serbian energy industry is going to, not only energy industry, because it's a very essential part of any country's political, economic, environment. So that was an introduction to what happened in 2008. And since 2008, you start to see proliferation of all sorts of Russo-Serbian organizations, friendly organizations, mutual ties, and so on. While in 2012, since 2012, it's exploded since this current government.
2012,
especially if you look at the APR, which is the agency for registration.
Commercial registers, yes.
Exactly. Even there, you'll see a large amount of Russo-Serbian organizations, literally from 2012. And
of course, these are like NGOs, which are...
Yeah, I would call them GO-NGOs. So
government-sponsored or government-organized.
Exactly, government-organized, either transparent or untransparently. And so my project includes likely over 1,000 of these organizations that sole purpose is to spread disinformation. So this is not to foster cultural ties, which is perfectly valid, right? You have preference for a certain country, certain culture, and you want to promote that bonds in public. That's fine, but this is not what I'm talking about. This is about the intentional spread of the disinformation to keep not only Serbia distant from the region, from the European Union, integration into the European Union, but to make even people who are prone to see the Serbian European Union not to believe to anyone.
Yeah, but don't you think that's actually only one kind of missing piece in the global picture where there is, of course, geopolitical competition, and the Russian Federation is one of the actors which is competing with the others, investing, funding other resources into similar endeavors. Some claim that they've been pivotal in Brexit vote, in French elections. But don't you think we are not an exception? Or
Absolutely, I do think, and I give credit to Russian propaganda service. They have done tremendous job, not only in Serbia, but as you said, you mentioned UK, maybe even United States, right, and many other countries. So they really did have, and they're doing still doing a very, very, very good job.
I mean, is it really exposing the weaknesses of liberal democracies? Democracies which have regular elections, and then the foreign interference, which is digital essentially, can make a difference.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's true. So it's important to say it's not that only the Russian is the kind of evil empire. That's not the case I want to make. The Russian Federation has many allies, important allies within the liberal democratic countries, And in some countries, they're in power. Like I like to mention the role of International Criminal Court, where many Western countries, agree that Vladimir Putin and his inner circle deserve to be tried there. However, when that same happened to Benjamin Netanyahu, the president of Israel, you have a large amount, but
kind of stalemate around that.
Yeah, many countries actually disagree. So you have, for example, just a few days ago, yesterday, a few days ago, several members of the ICC countries allowed plane of Benjamin Netanyahu to fly over their territory, even though they are under mandate to either to put that plane down and to arrest,
apprehend him.
Exactly, and that's Greece, Italy, France, even Canada. So there's it exposed a large hypocrisy among the Western countries, right? So and make them much weaker to combat not only disinformation but to defend Ukraine, for instance.
Yeah, but when you look at it from the angle of international order, I mean international public law, which was started growing after the First World War and the calamities of that conflict with Woodrow Wilson and universal principles of human rights, actually, which developed after Second World War. We are witnessing today a very uncomfortable situation of dissolution of this order, meaning that some of the principles are being kind of suspended. I mean, the obvious example is Russian aggression over the neighboring country. But there are other examples as well. So what we can observe is a lot of uncertainty in the future. What do you think about this?
It's disorderly world, absolutely. And in that disorder world, people who are amassed lots of power and financial meanings are the ones who would benefit from it, and everybody else would not. And so the interest I don't want to sound too conspiracies, but you can see who gave large donations and supported Donald Trump, who is maybe a leading figure right now.
Can you give me some examples?
Oh, Larry Ellison. I mean, all these high-tech
guys.
High-tech guys, pretty much. I mean,
what's their interest? I mean, except avoiding legally to pay a lot of taxes.
They don't want regulations. They want to monopolize the public space. And if you monopolize public information, they have a huge amount of power. Like just look at the X, social network, former Twitter, Facebook, and so on. So tremendous power they have.
Well, what do you think? What's the agenda? I mean, when you seize all that power, is this some sort of technocratic oligarchy? Or,
right. Exactly. They don't want to be regulated. I mean, which is the purpose of any private enterprise, pretty much, is to the bottom line. Is to create profit for its shareholders.
Yes.
So it's valid, but the role of the state has been eroded. The role of the state is to protect the public interest, to let companies to compete with each other.
Yes.
But at the same time protect the public interest. And so we have erosion of functions of states at the expense of these important, very relevant people.
Yeah, that's a very interesting notion, and it's quite visible when you see very aggressive statements coming from the American tech oligarchs regarding the European Union, and very surprising support they've been offering to extreme right parties.
There you go.
Like AfD in Germany or Ms. Le Pen in France and Reform UK. And the whole narrative was coming from that side of Atlantic, which was like EU is a vicious creation and it should dissolve into sovereign states. But I think when I look at it, there was a lot of screaming from American administration regarding the digital service taxes and other AI regulation coming from the EU.
Exactly.
Do you think that's the main
Yeah,
power struggle there?
Important pieces of puzzle.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, because of its own weaknesses of the European Union, right? The most important thing is they don't have a joint military force that can still, I mean, they're started investing finally much more into it, but they still rely a lot
Only recently,
on the United States. So their independence is quite limited. They thought like in 1991 when, the United States won that quick war against Iraq, they pretty much gave that security aspect of its security to the United States. But things are changing very fast. But we need some time before some of these European countries, I'd like to see more like Spain, right, is able to publicly say what they really believe, rather than to make them feel kind of awkward in public by trying to make President of the United States happy or satisfied with his policies.
Yeah, but when you look at European integration, I mean, what we see today, it's a successful project because it started after the Second World War and, as we mentioned, calamities of First World War by a group of visionary politicians, including Churchill, Spinelli, Monet, and others. And said, well, let's try something bottom up and integrate the economies, and it worked. So in Europe, there was no armed conflict among the member states of the European Union since 1940s, the last century. So it's quite a vital project. When we look at the wildfires yesterday in France and Spain, I mean, there is a pan-European solidarity. There are firefighters coming from Greece, from Romania, from
Serbia as well.
Serbia as well, yeah. Right. We are accession country, yeah. So there is a solidarity, and the continent is trying to improve this political unity, let's call it that way. So it seems it's hurting this interest. Both Russian and American. Huh?
Well, definitely if you have polarized these aspects, I'd like to see more, again, direct approach by liberal democratic political forces in every country. So every country, in the West.
Within the country.
Within the countries, right. I mean, not every country is completely liberal democratic.
Of course.
But for maybe Norway or Iceland, right? I was there and I haven't seen, let's say in public, on any media, even on YouTube channel, that a person would appear and trying to justify Russian aggression against Ukraine or to justify war crimes in Gaza or West Bank. That's impossible, pretty much. While in many other countries, it's even prevalent opinion, like in Serbia, right? In Serbia, you have lots of so-called pro-Western figures shooting for Israel to clean up Gaza and West Bank, and while on the other hand, of course, you have pro-Russian figures all over media space.
Yeah, Serbia seems quite exceptional in that regard. So one could say that the Russian propaganda efforts were quite impactful. I'll put it this way. And when you look at public opinion surveys, we are now somewhere around 40% of population is supporting integration into the EU, and Serbia is dependent on EU regarding trade and investment. But there is a quite significant section of population which is in favor of Russia and very close collaboration with Russia and staying out of EU, although we've been an accession country for a number of years. How's that possible? It's quite irrational, yeah.
Yeah, no, right. Listen, it's quite remarkable that we still have over 40% of people, at least nominally, are for seeing Serbia in the European Union. After all this massive amount of propaganda, disinformation against the European Union, or relativization of the values that European unions bring about. At the same time, unfortunately, I'm quite sure that large percentage of these 40-something percent do not have almost basic understanding what that entails for Serbia to, what are the preconditions to even think about joining the European Union. Some of these preconditions are definitely common security, membership in the common security. Whether it's NATO right now or something else, it's remains to be seen. But without that, we can't even think about. So being so-called neutral, it's in total opposition to be a member of the European Union. That's one thing. The second part is...
That's values,
Yeah, also values, of course. The second issue is, of course, the issue of Kosovo. It's impossible, again, even to enter the European Union without even formal recognition of Kosovo, even though it doesn't say in the Chapter 35 of acquis, right? Most important foreign ministers, Germany and France, in history, we have statements that Serbia can't join the European Union without even formally recognizing Kosovo.
But I wouldn't agree completely.
Sure.
It's a valid argument, but on the other hand, let's not forget that 5 member states of the European Union never recognized Kosovo, and they don't.
True.
They don't show any intention to do so. And when you look at the procedure of accepting new member state, you need a consensus of the existing members.
Right.
And in one of the previous podcasts, we had Mr. Međak as a guest, who's an EU integration expert. Right. And we spoke a lot about conditionalities and technical things regarding European integration of Serbia. And I gave actually the title to that episode that there will be a day when all Serbs will be living within one state, and the name of that state is European Union. This is just, and then there was a lot of course, the comments from this radical right saying that it's not the state, etc. Right. But it seems as a valid approach. Don't you think so?
You're absolutely right. But the 22 states did recognize Kosovo. And you know that there is a requirement of unanimity, unanimity
yes.
between the member states if they want to accept a new member state.
Yes.
So even in one state, like Germany, which is the most important pretty much country in the European Union, put that condition. You cannot join the European Union without even formally recognizing Kosovo. Serbia cannot become a member of the European Union.
But the Chapter 35 is talking about the legally binding agreement between Pristina and Belgrade. So it's a sort of leaving. It's creating a space for creative solution. We could imagine they both state of Serbia and entity of Kosovo, let's call it that way, are accepted the same day, or they create an ad hoc confederation, or
then one thing. Maybe I'm going too far ahead. Before even we think about legal even binding agreement between Serbia and Kosovo, which is accepted in the parliament of both countries and accepted in the public. Okay. There are so many steps to be done. One of these steps is to, let's say, commemorate Batajnica mass grave. And that's the duty of pro-European citizens in the country.
Yes.
And if you don't see that, and if you don't see a single, but for few, European Union flags on a flagpole in public, Ukrainian flags, how we can talk about 40-something% of...
But I'm seeing European flag all the time behind our president of Republic. When he's speaking to public, there is a EU flag behind him with Serbian flag.
That's why he's still in power, because he was able to portray himself in the West as less lunatic or less of a bad option for the European Union.
Let's call it extremist.
Extremist, okay, like extremist, than the opposition. So-called right-wing opposition. They were able to hijack the protests, even this ongoing protest, even earlier protest. Why? Mostly because the pro-European forces did not have enough courage to show their values in public.
Openly.
Like it's according to the law, and they're not able to do so. And if someone does that, he's been ostracized as maybe an agent of the government, or trying to provoke unrest, or trying to divide the so-called opposition forces.
What do you think? Why are they hesitating?
I think just don't have enough integrity, don't have enough courage. It's unfortunate I have to say that for my own country, and even diaspora is in the diaspora. I mean, I lived abroad for a while. I know how diaspora functions. Pretty much, I mean, you have individuals that know what needs to happen in Serbia, but diaspora is mostly organized around the church, Serbian Orthodox Church, which is quite conservative pro-Russian organization, national, ethno-philatelistic organization, and so on. And you have, folk culture where people within that musical genre don't dare to judge the government because government's policy, even through their songs, because they may lose their revenues.
Okay, that's cultural landscape, yeah. And
Right.
of course, it's highly relevant, you know. But I remember times like 20 years ago or more when the pro-EU support was 73-74%. I mean, it's been documented and
Right,
published
true.
as such.
And for NATO it was like 30%, right?
Yeah, around there, yeah.
Right.
But when, we all know that in democracy, political parties or social movements are actually competing with each other for votes. Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah, and when we just remind ourselves about the agenda, which was dominating last parliamentary elections, and the parliamentary majorities forming the government, and according to constitution, that's where the power is. And I remember that in my opinion, the main topic on agenda was whether to impose sanctions on Russian Federation or not. That was December 23 or November 23. And there was this roundtable on public broadcaster RTS, and all the parties there actually had a very neat consensus, except PSG, I would say, and the Green Party, that it shouldn't be done. And they were competing who will be stronger in not imposing sanctions and stuff like that. So at the time when all the European countries already did it. So now I'm not speaking about the what's pragmatic in politics, whether you should do it and when should you do it. That's another set of issues. But I'm talking about what was dominating the elections. How is this possible?
It's possible because everything we said earlier, right? I like to, I always like to see not what the officials in government say. I mean, they have different voices. They have Russian extremists within the government that's sanctions by the West. At the same time, like Popovich, for instance, right? And you have so-called, ministries that care for women's rights, right? Being blind at the same time about abuses that's going against women all the time on media and so on.
Nominally, they're liberal or something.
Right, nominally they're liberal. So, but the government speaks through its control organizations, either within the opposition, so-called, or through these so-called NGOs, Gong organizations, because they're freely to speak out. They're not officially, connected to the government. And so they set the tone in media as well in public, on streets, right?
So what are you trying to tell us, if I understand correctly, is that the political regime developed the whole ecosystem of kind of avatar parties, which are nominal opposition, but actually they're not. They're controlled, and they're this government-organized NGO, and they're promoting the kind of pro-Russian agenda. And in the same time, the government is presenting themselves to Brussels as the liberals, protecting liberty, democracy.
Well, let's say liberals, but less bad option for the European Union than alternative. Okay. And I'll just give you one example, which is important not to leave that out. Maybe you are aware of it, not many citizens, that my organization with the organization Crocodile by Vladimir Arsenievich have been painting over graffitis that are painted by the government gong organizations or extremist organizations or soccer hooligans or football hooligans. And but for few other individuals, nobody does that in Serbia, and we are the only ones doing it openly, like exposing ourselves. Vladimir Asinovic was attacked last week because of it, and so we've been painting over this extremist national graffitis like anti-EU, anti-NATO, pro-Russia, pro-war crimes. This Kosovo
in public spaces,
right? And so when people talk about there are 40% of citizens that are pro-European Union, well, at least few percent of these pro-Euro citizens should paint over these hate graffitis in their own neighborhood, but we don't see that. I'm not trying to of course put my finger on every single individual in Serbia, even though we all have individual responsibilities. But at least those that pretend in public to be pro-European figures, either in NGO sector or in political space, they have obligation.
But don't you think it's a valid point, but don't you think it works a little bit different in civilized societies? The government, the public service, the police force, they should be the ones actually prohibiting such behavior and such graffiti of any kind. If you go to Vienna, Austria, or Budapest, Hungary, you won't see any such graffitis on the walls. There are no graffitis. If you want to discuss politics, you go to the podcast, you go to the television station.
Listen, right? If you expect me to talk about bad things about government, I think No,
I'm just asking a question.
No, of course. I think it's self-explanatory.
Okay.
Serbian government has been the best Russian ally, the most important ally after Orban, and Orban has left the power in Europe. And so they're doing as much as possible because Serbia is surrounded by members of the European Union.
Is that still the case?
Oh, yes, it is.
Yes.
It is. Vladimir Putin is still the most popular figure within Serbia compared to other countries in Europe. That didn't happen out of blue. They didn't happen without the government control. They didn't happen some rogue states infiltrating Serbia while poor Serbian government can't do anything about it.
But now with Fidesz not anymore in power in Budapest, it's only Serbia left. And don't you think it's a risky position for people in power?
Well, it is risky to a certain extent, but it's not risky as long as they don't have a pro-European Union alternative in opposition. And unfortunately, a relevant party. We have few census party that may enter the parliament around 3%, but that's insignificant. That's almost nothing. If they don't have a strong pro-European, not under our conditions, pro-European party, but what I said, in terms of how do you approach the international justice? How do you treat International Criminal Court, International Criminal Court of Justice? How do you treat, in other words, how do you treat the issue of Israel and Russian Federation? How do you treat? So those are all,
or perhaps how you impose environmental standards in some regions, or how
those are
develop
technicalities.
Small and medium enterprises.
Those are technicalities.
I'm talking about economy and quality of life.
Sure. You would hear from the Russian extremist parties here. They're all against, theft. They're all against violence. They're all against, they're all for women's rights in general. Nobody should beat women in family and so on. So there is a consensus among pretty much everybody. Nobody would say, "Oh no, I'm for more corruption. I'm for more violence." You can hardly hear that. But these issues that I mentioned, those are polarizing issues. And those are issues where if you have a strong stance and among the pro-European Union forces in Serbia, then Vučić can feel comfortable still being in power. Not maybe personally, but his idea and the pro-Russian idea will remain in Serbia without being contested in a relevant way.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's about, and this is for a question, I would guess, for social psychologists, that actually people of this country and the neighboring countries in a way went through a lot of trauma during 90s and even before, and that they're seeking some sort of stability and anchor And when you look, let's say, to Belarus, Lukashenko regime, everything in streets is clean. There are no conflicts.
In North Korea as well.
North Korea as well, Saudi Arabia maybe, and some other countries like that. I mean, this autocracies which are providing stability and decent standard of living, and you don't have to think much, and you don't have to contest ideas of other people. So you don't engage yourself. You preserve your energy for other stuff. And democracy is a messy process. You need to talk to people, discuss, oppose them, provide arguments. You have to think.
Absolutely.
Do you agree with this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, and that's why.
How do we make people think in this country?
How?
Yeah.
Well. First and foremost, we need one important step. We need people to not being discouraged and afraid to speak out and behave in public the way they behave within four walls. Okay, so I mentioned just why is it important to have in public on the flagpole flags of European Union, Ukraine, and Palestine. Why is it important? It's important because from there you'll have lots of other arguments being promoted intentionally or unintentionally in relevant media. Because we don't have these flags, but for few, you won't see a relevant argument like this on so-called independent media, such as TV and One, OS,
but
so
let me before you go deeper.
Right.
So the answer to my question, in your own words, is we need to restore legality, because laws and legislation, that's the minimum of morality in theory, and there is integrity behind it. So we need to restore moral integrity as a nation, stop being hypocrites, talking very openly in four walls or in a cafe or somewhere, while when we go public, we simply, we are conformists again. Huh?
Which is normal, which is natural. So I'm not expecting every single individual to go in public, put the European flagpole, and expect to be physically abused, which would happen, but not. But I do expect for some, at least, every single society has some brave, courageous people, normalized, and they should lead that process. But no, we don't have, and that's the duty of all people in public that portray themselves as pro-European Union. So that they can do individually, we can do in groups, right? Whatever. So, but not to wait for the European House in Belgrade, in downtown, to organize a pro-European event. And then you have few flagpoles, and then the Rundek from the rock and roll singer will come, and people from Belgrade will sing, oh my God, how wonderful that is. And they would go home, and nothing would happen until the next event. So that's not the way how you fight for your liberty.
But let's remind ourselves that actually it's allowed and it's I should say political custom, which has been seen that accession countries, because they are countries which want to join EU, have the possibility to expose the European flag in public places, like on the town hall, or not just in the seat of the government, meaning the office of President of the Republic, but actually you put it on the public buildings. When I was Secretary of General of the European Movement, there was a European flag on our office. I mean, in 2002, 2003.
Right. So there is not anymore.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. I'm talking more about let's say young people. Like I was said in few neighboring countries, young people do wear, and on the flagpole of European Union. Nobody touches them.
So public
in
event,
Serbia, and everybody talking about students, you don't have almost a single student in Serbia daring to do that. So first, to understand, to have enough knowledge. Maybe I should not expect too much from 20 years old, but I remember I was 20 years old. I remember I was against nationalism, but for few students who dare to do that, right? So that's one thing, and a huge responsibility lies, of course, again on. Unfortunately, I have to criticize pro-European groups, not every single one, but most of them, by allowing to issue of Project Jadar, or the lithium mining project in Western Serbia, it won't happen, become the major tool against the European Union, based on spread of disinformation, on spread of inaccurate statements promoted by so-called independent media as well.
That was
and pro-European parties.
That project was a victim of this spillover effect of propaganda, and
it was intentional project. Whether you call it pro-Russian, pro-China, or whatever, you have even German foundation sponsoring this disinformation campaign against the Rio Tinto project, which is again that's
I haven't seen
another.
That, but that's quite quite an
sure. Let's say NGO or GEO. Nedamo Jadar has been sponsored by some German foundations affiliated with, regular. We have 4 German foundations. We have, for example, just a few days ago, German foundation Rosa Luxemburg, that affiliated with some left parties here, so-called anti-imperialist parties, in other words, anti-NATO, and that means anti-EU parties, have a huge publications against against the Project Jadar based on this information. And so even that's a kind of small fringe within the opposition groups, but they're all allied. You don't see a group fighting against this disinformation.
Yeah, it was almost like cross-party consensus,
right? And that's very unfortunate. And even
but I felt at that time that there was a lack of genuine dialogue in society based on arguments. And that seems to be missing, yeah.
No, absolutely. But people should take this to the streets, because media are spreading propaganda. When they say spreading propaganda, they would allow some of this media here and there, few voices to say the truth, but then they would bomb with disinformation, inviting people without relevance, even with relevance, because Serbian Academy of Science, SANU, is full with people spreading the disinformation, especially this energy sector. I mean, and some of them are...
It's a government-funded organization.
Which is fine. I mean, okay. I mean, universities are also funded... they should be funded by the government. That's fine.
Yeah, but if you're funding somebody with public money, you can influence the agendas.
But SANU members, I believe, they have money for life. So at least they're, in that regard, independent, like a regular professor.
They do, but it's paid by taxpayers. Yeah.
No, it is. But nobody hardly can be taken away from that money. Even if it's taken away from them, I mean, they have other jobs besides their professors.
It's fine. Yeah,
so,
let's maybe conclude by remark that actually we live in a society here which is in a very peculiar situation where you have de facto suspended liberties, as there is no genuine dialogue in the public space which can reach citizens, where it's quite risky and dangerous to promote certain political ideas. And
not certain, but liberal democratic.
Others
are allowed.
Others are allowed.
Not. Yeah.
So in other words, this is leading to a kind of stagnation and perpetual same.
Crisis here and there.
Yeah. So, but let's not be gloomy with our conclusion. I think that our discussion this morning is testifying that we need to
absolutely be optimistic,
gain our liberties by being proactive. Okay, thank you for the conversation. Thanks a lot.